Secretary Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, Bill Burns, John Feiner, Brett McGurk, Amos Hochstein, and the Vice President worked relentlessly as we work to deliver this deal. I'd also note this deal was developed and negotiated under my administration, but its terms will be implemented, for the most part, by the next administration. In these past few days, we've been speaking as one team. This has been time of real turmoil in the Middle East. But as I prepare to leave office, our friends are strong, our enemies are weak, and there's genuine opportunities for a new future. In Lebanon, there's an opportunity for a future, free from the grip of Hezbollah. In Syria, a future free from the tyranny of Assad. And for the Palestinian people, a credible pathway to a state of their own. And for the region, a future of normalization, integration of Israel and all its Arab neighbors, including Saudi Arabia. At the G20 in Delhi in September 23, I rallied key countries behind a vision of an economic corridor from India across the Middle East to Europe. That vision can now become a reality. There are risks as well, including ISIS and Iran, even in a badly weakened state. But we're handing off then to the next team a real opportunity for a better future for the Middle East. I hope they will take it. Let me close with this. My friend for years in the United States Senate, former Senator George Mitchell, who did so much to forge peace in Northern Ireland, once said about diplomacy, he said, it is a 700 days of failure and 1 day of success. 700 days of failure and 1 day of success. Well, we've had many difficult days since Hamas began its terrible war. We've encountered roadblocks and setbacks. We've not given up. And now, after more than 400 days of struggle, a day of success has arrived. God bless all the hostages and their families. May God protect the troops of all those who work for peace.
So if you've just tuned in, we've got a ceasefire now. The war is over in the Middle East. Great day. We've said when this happens, the stock market would rally 5%. Of course, if you're in margin, that's 10%. So it's a $20,000, $25,000 rally for me. Huge day for the markets. We've got such great news with everything now, with the inflation coming down, everything we planned for, everything we've worked for, and now the market is going to boom. It's not really digesting this yet. It will in the next couple of hours. Don't be surprised if my portfolio goes up another 4 or 5%. That'll be $25,000 in a day if that happens. And this isn't just my portfolio, of course. There's my Roth IRA as well. My overall balance is over here. Let's listen in to the president. We'll cover all this news. It's a big day, a great day, of course, for peace. As investors, we're extremely excited about this.
Thank you.
In the how many Americans will be released when the hostages are being released?
All the exact detail of how many people are being held, how many bodies will be returned and less, will all be forthcoming. All of it, all of it. Thank you.
This deal will hold.
I'm confident. Thank you.
Books credit for this, Mr. President, you or Trump?
Is that a joke? Oh, thank you.
There was a little bit of sarcasm there, I think.
Over the line after painstaking and precarious diplomacy. A
Great
ceasefire
news.
deal
Stock market is
Israel
starting
and
to
Hamas
absorb it now.
brokered by the US, have we seen, but also by Egypt and Qatar.
Now, this has just happened. I wanted to come live. I wasn't going to be live this afternoon, but this was such a big humanitarian story. It's what we've been waiting for. It's what investors have been doing, digging the ditches and waiting. And we've got now the stock market absolutely booming. Absolutely booming. This is a very, 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 very big day today. And it's going to keep going and keep going and keep going.
It's a three-phase ceasefire
let me change
deal
to this screen here. Do it here.
The first phase, lasting 42 days, will be
do not chase the market. Let it correct.
33
unless you're prepared to wait and hold.
Released back,
but this is a big rally now. We've just started on.
Being held by Israel. Phase 2 then becomes the permanent end to the war, as President Biden said, where all the hostages are released. Phase 3, the reconstruction plan for Gaza, and then the remains of the hostages who have died to be returned as well. The Qatari Prime Minister also emphasising that any violations will be addressed in an early stage, with, of course, the hope that this will prove to be a more lasting ceasefire than ones we've seen before. Well, we can bring in now our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who is outside the White House for us. We've just heard, of course, from President Joe Biden, very keen to take credit for this ceasefire deal.
Yeah, very good afternoon, Sophie, from Washington, D.C., where it's just gone 2 p.m. It's 10 p.m. In Doha and 9 p.m. in Jerusalem and in Gaza, where this historic moment will have such a huge impact.
Wait until the markets start to digest. It hasn't actually
what was a
hit the
highly
markets
choreographed
yet.
moment from the Qatari Prime Minister, who spoke
over 4%, over $4,000. It's gaining momentum.
That he and his country have been so pivotal to bring about. And
all-time highs, moments away.
In Washington, D.C., we heard from the outgoing President, Joe Biden, flanked by his Vice President, Kamala Harris, and his
Tap the
Secretary
like button,
of State,
guys.
Anthony
Share this
Blinken,
out. This is great news
again,
for the world.
outlining the details of a deal. He said there was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal, and I am deeply satisfied that this day has come. And he quoted the veteran negotiator George Mitchell, who helped bring about peace in Northern Ireland, and quoting him saying, "It's 700 days of failure and 1 day of success." Of course, 1 day of success to bring about the moment where they have agreed a ceasefire. But the very, very hard work comes now. As you say, the ceasefire will not begin until Sunday. That is still a few days away. And so we have days where both sides could try to make moves, to do things that they feel might be in their interests. That could be very, very
If you make comments, I will share them on the screen. If you've got any comments, please put your comments in and I will share them on the screen. Great day for investors, great day for peace, great day for the world. I had to bring you this live.
Or the incoming American administration. It was noteworthy that in his answer to the Qatari Prime Minister, in answering a question by Sky's my colleague Galda Hakim, he was quite careful in his words in answering the extent to which this was down to Donald Trump and the incoming team. He said, what I can say is that we have seen from the Americans collaboration transcending, which helped to reach this deal. And the Qatari Prime Minister thanked both sides. It was interesting that Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's man for the Middle East, not yet, of course, formally confirmed, but fascinatingly has already been part of the negotiations, working hand in glove with Brett McGurk, his counterpart in the Biden administration. He was in the room in Qatar to listen to that announcement being made. So I think we can say with a degree of confidence that both sides should and will claim significant credit for what has unfolded here. The outgoing Biden administration, the incoming Trump administration, although, as you can expect, both of them are basically claiming all the credit. We heard it there just now from President Biden saying that it was America's work over many months in terms of negotiating and helping the region to be molded to the state that it is
You're
now
welcome,
in, with
Bernie.
Iran so severely
It's
degraded
important.
in terms of its proxies in Lebanon and Syria, of course, completely changed over the course of the past few months. Biden is saying that is because of America. Trump, in a statement, and we will probably hear from him in person at some point later, is claiming all the credit as well, saying that it is his negotiating tactics that have brought about this. But you know what? I guess the whole thing is summed up by a word I got from someone I've been in touch with for quite some time in Gaza. I messaged him a few moments ago, a regular guy, 21 years old. He said, "I can't believe that I was able to make it. I am alive." That, I think, sums up this very historic moment, a ceasefire in Gaza, the release of hostages that will come as soon as Sunday or Monday, a huge moment indeed.
Yeah, it certainly does. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Mark Stone there at the White House. And we can go now to Doha because our presenter.
If you've just tuned in, I'll
presenter
just
Yada
mute that for a
Hakim was
moment. If you've just tuned in, we've got a ceasefire, end of the war in the Middle East. The markets are loving this, and they haven't really absorbed it. This has just happened. I was on this the second I knew that this was going to happen. So it's a great day for the world. We've been planning for this, investing for this. So wonderful to see. If everyone could tap the like button, share this out to the world. I'm not going to stay on for very long. I am having the afternoon off. I'm taking some time, but this is more important. People have been through a war and people have been dying and have died, but this is the end of it. And it's just such a great day. And of course, we're an investment channel, so it's wonderful to see that. If you are an investor in that right now, it's just going to be incredible next few weeks. There's nothing to stop the market now going up 5-10% now. There's nothing to stop it. Inflation's coming down. Wars are ending. I mean, you've got every single thing you could possibly wish for in a market right now.
That sort of detail hasn't yet come out. Obviously, the two sides have some of those details, but they haven't actually been made public in terms of who exactly these hostages are. We know that the first phase will include women, children, the elderly, those who have injuries, those who need to be hospitalized and are ill. But this is such a significant, monumental moment. And as you say, I'm currently in Doha, in Qatar. This country, this very small nation, has been pivotal to the negotiations. They were crucial in November 2023 when we saw just over 100 hostages released then, where we saw those moving images of the Red Cross convoy bringing out women and children, some of the elderly in that very first phase. And that collapsed after about 8 days. And then we saw the violence continue with 46,000 plus Palestinians killed as a result of this 15-month conflict. And this is not just respite and a big sigh of relief for the families of the hostages who will be going home, those who are alive, but also for the 1.92 million Palestinians who have been living in utter devastation for the last 15 months. We've seen Gaza completely flattened. So many questions asked about the way that Israel has prosecuted this conflict. And of course, the big questions around humanitarian aid. But there is one thing that there is no doubt around, and speaking to officials here on the ground, is very clear that the pressure coming in from the incoming Trump administration played a crucial role. And that is a question I put to the Qatari Prime Minister when I said that is it that pressure that got this over the line? Because this particular deal is no different to the deal that the Biden administration has been pushing from at least May of last year. And yet there was a number of spanners in the work. Let's have a listen to that grab of me asking the question from the Prime Minister.
Congratulations. This is a huge moment. You, as you say, have been working on this deal for many months. And the question is, why now? Why this moment? And was it pressure from the incoming Trump administration that got it over the line? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Hilda, for this question. Actually, we've been raising the question of the right moment for the entire period since the collapse of the first phase. But we have seen a momentum that started to build in the last month, and we kept pushing for that, working together very closely with our partners. And I can say that what we have seen from the US in the past few days, seeing a collaboration transcending both administrations, was a clear demonstration for the commitment of the US to reach to that deal. And I really would like to thank both the envoys who are here with us in the last couple of days, and they played a vital role in reaching to this moment. And of course, for us and Egypt, this is something that we are a stakeholder in that conflict, that we have to do it and we have to help and to support. But we have seen the steps that's been taken recently from the US has yielded to this moment.
Sophie, you were just listening there to the Qatari Prime Minister. In the last 10 minutes or so, when I put that question to him, we were holed up in that room for about 2 or 3 hours. And we were told at one point, about an hour in, that he was 5 minutes away and he was going to make this announcement and confirm that the ceasefire had been approved. And then suddenly silence. And
we will
we
talk
were
about the
waiting
stock
and
market
waiting,
in a
and
few
then
moments.
we were
Please
told
tap
by
the
the
like button,
Qatari
share
officials
this
that there
out.
are still
We need
some
100 likes
issues
to
that
get
need
suggested
to be
on
ironed
YouTube.
out.
This is
And
great
then, of
news
course,
for the
we
world
heard
and
from
investors.
the Israeli Prime Minister's office that they had raised a number of concerns. But in this moment, in this very historic moment that so many people have been waiting for over the course of the last 15 months, tonight there will be much celebration in Gaza, in Israel, after 15 months of violence and turmoil, where we saw 46,000 Palestinians killed. We saw over 250 hostages at one point after October 7 held in Gaza, and 33 of those over the course of the next 42 days will be coming home, and with the hope that this ceasefire will hold, humanitarian aid will get to the much needed and desperate people of Gaza, and hopefully this ends, as the Qatari Prime Minister said, this very violent, brutal chapter that has devastated Gaza, flattened Gaza, and left half of the number of people that I said had been killed are children. Many of them have been left orphans as well in Gaza. So it really is a historic moment. And when I spoke to the Qatari Prime Minister, I sat down with him when the Emir of Qatar was on a state visit to the UK about 6 weeks ago, and he gave an exclusive interview to Sky News. I asked him about this deal, and I put to him whether the Trump administration, after the November 5th election, had asked for a deal to be brokered before inauguration. And he confirmed it then, and he confirmed it again this evening when he said that the pressure, the momentum that was built over the course of the last month has led them to this point. The big question now is, will this ceasefire hold? Because it is incredibly complex. It isn't just one phase, it's multiple phases, and it is then the responsibility of the leadership in this region, as well as the international community, to ensure that there is some path to long-term peace. And I guess the other interesting thing to observe is whether the Trump administration will take an active role to ensure that there is long-term peace in the region for the Palestinian people.
I'll give you all your perks later on. Stand by.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it, Yalda? And also just giving that insight into the stop-start nature of the news conference in Qatar, it just makes you realise how down to the wire this was, how fragile, how precarious the negotiations were. You know, you've covered this conflict for 15 months, the bloodshed, the anger, the grief. Do you get the sense that this is different? This is, as you say, that historic moment where we could get a lasting peace?
Yeah, absolutely, Sophie. As you say, I mean, the stop-start nature of the press conference in the last moment, to hear that the Israeli Prime Minister had asked various questions around it. He is answerable to his public, to his cabinet. Equally, Hamas wants to see what it can get out of this deal. There was so much hanging, for both sides in this. And the big push from the Qataris, the Egyptians, the Americans.
Market is now digesting it.
And don't forget,
now moving on the market.
Groups who are all sitting in the one room.
Can you see it moving now?
They are now at least in the one country. They're all here in Qatar, and we saw the American officials. Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, was here, as well as President Biden's Brett McGurk. These are very complicated, sensitive
market is starting to notice this.
Want to get the most
of course, we're
out
here
of it.
first, or
and
always.
They weren't sitting across from each other in the room talking. The various different groups, the Americans, the Qataris, were shuttling between the two groups. So, last-minute changes, silence that we heard from Hamas yesterday. On Monday, I was told that this will be announced on Tuesday. When we arrived here, and we rushed to get here on Tuesday for the announcement, only to wait all night and to be told that actually there's silence now from Hamas's side. And I guess for Hamas, there is the office here in Qatar, where the political office is based and where they're having these negotiations sitting across from the Americans and talking to the Qataris and the Egyptians. But there's also the Hamas leadership in Gaza. And as much as the discussions are taking place here in Doha, it's the Hamas militants in Gaza that need to agree to handing over the hostages, for example, to bringing an end to their side of the violence. So all of that was adding layers of complication
Thank you very much.
to get the message. And it isn't just about picking up a phone and calling, the militants in Gaza and telling them to agree to this deal. Because of the nature of the conflict and because the leadership is underground, and given that so many of their leaders over the course of the last 15 months have been killed, getting that information to them is also incredibly complicated. So there are so many layers of complication to just getting messages to the right people to get them all to agree. Just gives you a sense of just how difficult this has been and why it's taken so long. With all the different characters and personalities and all the different people, trying to derail these negotiations, it has been a long and frustrating and, bloody 15 months.
Yalda, thank you very much indeed. Yalda Hakim there, reporting for us from Doha at that press conference with the Qatari Prime Minister. And if you are, of course, just joining us, a ceasefire deal is over the line between Israel and Hamas, brokered by the US, by Egypt and Qatar. The first phase involves a 42-day ceasefire beginning Sunday, the release of 33 hostages in a prisoner swap with Hamas and with Israel. And then, in phase 2 and phase 3, tentatively, hopefully, a plan for a potentially lasting peace. Well, joining us now is the Trade and Economic Security Minister, Douglas Alexander. It feels like it could be, we hope, a historic day. What's your reaction?
Of course we hope it is a new dawn after what's been a terrible, long, dark night of suffering for many innocent Palestinians, of course, for the hostages
You just tuned
and for
in.
their families.
Fantastic news. The stock market is going to explode. It hasn't digested it yet. We've just reported this live as it happened.
Crime back on October the 7th.
Don't chase it. Wait for a correction.
I guess some people looking at this will be... But there's been so much bloodshed.
It's an amazing day.
The devastation of Gaza, the hostages...
Can everyone tap the like button and share this information out to the world, please? That would be great.
Or dead. This deal has been on the table for a long time. Why has it taken this long?
Because negotiations are very hard. You were dealing with state and non-state actors, people like both of the envoys that were mentioned, and I think it's a tribute to both the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration that for once, in a highly polarised situation in the United States, they were working hand in glove to get this deal over the line. But as you say, they were working with the Egyptian government, with the Qataris, who deserve a lot of credit for convening this deal, and ultimately in Hamas and in the government of Israel. This one could imagine the depth of emotion, the depth of suffering, the depth of jeopardy that was associated with this horrific conflict over recent months meant that you needed the painful, difficult and often apparently hopeless diplomatic efforts that tonight seem to have yielded that result.
You said there about the Joe Biden and the Donald Trump teams working together on this.
The markets are reacting.
That is true, but they're
starting to move now.
Credit for it as well.
Could be a 5% rally. See it? Here we go.
I honestly couldn't care less, in the sense that success has many fathers and mothers. The reality is the substance of what is being announced tonight matters much more. Having observed over the peace the efforts of the Biden administration, I think it was entirely right for the president to pay tribute not just to Jake Sullivan as national security advisor, Bill Burns, the CIA director, Tony Blinken in particular,
XRP is going back up again,
who over almost 400 days have just kept going. They've kept working when objectively the circumstances seemed hopeless. But it's right to say that, of course, it was good that both the envoys, the incoming envoy and the existing envoy, were in the room with the Qataris.
Unless you are prepared to wait on your returns.
You'll get this as a former international trade, international development, I should say.
Let me share this with you, big screen.
So I welcome the announcement this evening. The humanitarian effort is ready to be mobilised, but what needed to be unlocked was the security and political situation to allow the humanitarian community to get to work. It is an immediate responsibility to deliver aid to the suffering, but let's be under no illusion, if you like, the ceasefire that we are looking at being announced in the coming days is the foundation on which we need to see a political prospectus emerge. And in that sense, that's the only durable basis on which we'll be able to see the rebuilding of Gaza.
You see, this is the key, isn't it? Like you say, the kind of political solution. This is the only way to get a lasting peace.
Sure.
This is what history tells us time and time again is the difficult bit. Do you think there's been enough focus on that?
Well, I think you needed the ceasefire in order to enable the political conversation. But one of the questions that has been asked repeatedly of the Israeli government was what was their day after plan? If you like, who did they ultimately want to be running Gaza once they had
Savage Faith Creations has
finished
become a
the
member.
military action that we're seeing come to a conclusion now? I listened very carefully to the announcement of the President and indeed to the Qatari Prime Minister. There are still unanswered questions, frankly, as to what will be the character of the governance structures in Gaza. But frankly, that is for tomorrow. Tonight, we should feel a huge sense of relief that you needed the ceasefire many in order to enable tireless diplomatic effort. But one of the questions that has been asked repeatedly of the Israeli government was what was their day after plan? If you like, who did they ultimately want to be running Gaza once they had finished the military action that we're seeing come to a conclusion now? I listened very carefully to the announcement of the President and indeed to the Qatari Prime Minister. There are still unanswered questions, frankly, as to what will be the character of the governance structures in Gaza. But frankly, that is for tomorrow. Tonight, we should feel a huge sense of relief.
The reason why you only have
that
6
after
months,
many,
it goes
many
from 6 months
of
to
tireless
12
diplomatic
months.
efforts, we
There's
have
nothing
seen
in
the
between.
progress that so many of us had wanted to see. But the ceasefire, by character and definition, is temporary. If you like, if you want a durable
to 1
peace
year
on
next.
which you could see in the future a viable Palestinian state alongside a secure Israel, then the diplomatic work has to continue, notwithstanding tonight feeling like, if you like, a glimpse of light in a very dark sky.
Yeah, we'll take that for now, right?
Absolutely.
You said that, look, you pay tribute to the Biden administration, that the fact that this is a deal that obviously he fleshed out a long time ago and designed. At the same time, though, it can't be a coincidence that this is over the line in the days before Donald Trump becomes president. Do you think almost the kind of spectre of Trump is finally getting some things moving?
Listen, it's not for me to attribute credit or blame. I think we should all just feel in our common humanity a sense of relief. After many, many months of unimaginable suffering, we've got progress. Of course, people will be claiming
I'm sorry,
credit.
you are completely
Frankly,
wrong.
I care much less
Absolutely,
about who claims
GB
credit
original,
than the substance
NVIDIA,
of what that
you are
credit
completely
represents,
wrong.
which is,
Stock
frankly, a new
market
sense
does
of
not see it the way
possibility
you
after many,
do.
many days in
You can
which
see it going
objectively
up right
the situation
now.
was not just one of
We
human
know
suffering,
why it's going up
but
as
felt
well.
diplomatically hopeless. All of the diplomats from whichever side who have been part of securing this ceasefire
It's got everything to
deserve
do with the
credit.
stock market.
Your job is trade, right? That's what you're...
Let me change perspective for you.
Committee in the House of Commons just before Christmas, or the earlier Mansion House speech, he was very clear that as a government we don't want to have to choose in a binary polarised fashion between talking to the United States
Can
or
everyone
talking
tap
to
the like
Europe.
button, share
We
this
want to
out.
be
This is a
there
major,
talking to all
major
of our
news
economic
story
partners.
for everybody. We want the world to know what's going on here. Please tap the like button and share it out.
There. Well, as you will no doubt be hearing, a ceasefire deal has been agreed between Israel and Hamas. It will begin on Sunday. It's been brokered by the US, by Qatar and also by Egypt. Let's get the latest from our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, who's in Jerusalem for us. Alistair, what's your reaction to this announcement?
Well, after more than 467 days of fighting, 15 and a half months, it's been a long time since those Hamas attacks on October the 7th, a long time for the families of the hostages still being held inside Gaza, 94 of them, and a long time, of course, for the people of Gaza. More than 46,000 Palestinians have been killed in the last year and a half. There have been multiple attempts to try and broker a ceasefire deal.
Market is moving quicker and quicker as it digests this.
But the fighting geography and the dynamics in this region have changed in a way that nobody would have predicted. Who would have foreseen Israel and Iran attacking each other directly? Who would have foreseen the downfall of President Bashar al-Assad? Who would have foreseen events that have taken place in Lebanon? And I think there's been a multitude of factors that have led us to this stage, not just the longevity of the war and the fact that, privately Israeli commanders have told me they feel that they have done their job in Gaza and it's now time for the political process to start. Hamas has realized that it doesn't have the support from the Iranian axis in the way that they hoped when they launched those murderous attacks 15 and a half months ago. And no doubt,
if you've got messages, please
of President Donald
put them in the
Trump
chat. I'll share them on the
White
screen.
House
Positive messages,
put pressure
please.
Both on Hamas and
useful,
on Benjamin
respectful
Netanyahu
messages. I'll
to
share on
come
the
to this
screen.
deal, and this deal has eventually been reached. It still needs to be ratified by the Israeli Security Cabinet. We expect that cabinet to sit tomorrow, and we expect it to be approved despite opposition from some extreme right-wing ministers within the cabinet. There'll also be a process through the Supreme Court here in Israel that will allow anybody who objects to the deal, particularly objects to the release of some of the prisoners from the Palestinian side coming out of Israeli jails. But again, that is expected to pass without a hiccup. And so all being well, on Sunday, there will finally be some peace. Whether it is peace that can last beyond the first phase of 42 days, we don't know yet. Those are discussions that will take place during the middle of the first phase. But the mediators are committed to it, the wider world is committed to it, and we'll have to see whether Israel and Hamas are also committed to an enduring peace in Gaza.
Well, that's the key question, isn't it, Alistair? And just as you were speaking, we've had a line come through to say that the acting
I'm
Chief
sorry,
of Hamas in
MVP,
Gaza,
you say that. You don't understand how the world works, how brokerage deals are done. I'm very sorry for you, but you're absolutely wrong.
Do you think it perhaps reflects that this is a fragile agreement that's been brokered?
I'd expect to hear spin and claims of victory from
rebuilding,
both
construction
sides in the coming hours.
Security,
but when it comes to
oil,
Hamas in Gaza,
the list goes on and on. Why this is affecting the stock market.
This week, 9 Israeli soldiers have been killed in 2 separate incidents in northern Gaza. That itself is proof that Hamas still retains fighting capability. And tonight, amid the celebrations amongst Palestinians in Gaza, there have also been Hamas gunmen out on the streets, armed, in balaclavas, again proving they are not defeated. But they are not the force they were. They can barely launch missiles into Israel. At the beginning of this war, they could launch hundreds a day into Israel, reaching up to Jerusalem here. There is the occasional rocket that comes out of Gaza, but it's shot down pretty quickly. Their leaders, Yahya Sinwar and Ismail Haniyeh, have both been assassinated, along with senior commanders like Mohammed Daif. They are a severely degraded force. They are a force that could not carry out an attack on Israel in the way that they did on October the 7th. But in the days after October the 7th, they were. They can barely launch missiles into Israel. At the beginning of this war, they could launch hundreds a day into Israel, reaching up to Jerusalem here. There is the occasional rocket that comes out of Gaza, but it's shot down pretty quickly. Their leaders, Yahya Sinwar and Ismail Haniyeh, have both been assassinated, along with senior commanders like Mohammed Daif. They are a severely degraded force. They are a force that could not carry out an attack on Israel in the way that they did on October the 7th. But in the days after October the 7th, Benjamin Netanyahu vowed total victory and the total destruction of Hamas. That has not been achieved. And so Israel, if this ceasefire is to move through the multiple phases,
not a surprise that a security stock
is to be enduring,
which we've covered, like Gorilla, is pumping big today. It is no surprise whatsoever.
What influence Hamas has going forward
we expected
in the Gaza Strip, both politically and as a militant resistance force, that is very much still up for question.
Ali, thank you very much indeed. Alistair Bunkle reporting there for us from Jerusalem. Well, there's been an awful lot of international reaction. We heard, of course, first from the Qataris, so central in brokering the ceasefire, and then from the Americans, by the brutal terrorists as well, again, who committed the deadliest massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust on October the 7th, 2023. The hostages, who were brutally ripped from their homes on that day and held captive in unimaginable conditions ever since, can now finally return to their families. But we should also use this moment to pay tribute to those who won't make it home, including the British people who were murdered by Hamas. We will continue to mourn and remember them. For the innocent Palestinians whose homes turned into a war zone overnight and the many who have lost their lives, this ceasefire must allow for a huge surge in humanitarian aid, which is so desperately needed to end the suffering in Gaza. And then our attention must turn to how we secure a permanently better future for the Israeli and Palestinian people, grounded in a two-state solution that will guarantee security and stability for Israel alongside a sovereign and viable Palestine state. The UK and its allies will continue to be at the forefront of these murdered by Hamas to break the cycle of violence and secure long-term peace in the Middle East. We can bring in our political correspondent now, Ali Fortescue. And Ali, I've been reflecting, at times like this, Britain can feel like a bit of a bit part player when you look at the countries who have been involved in the war or the countries who brokered the agreement. But, this is a war and a conflict that has...
Gold is moving up.
Left a kind of deep stain on our nation as well. You can see that by the passions, the anger, the grief that people in this country have felt, the effect on the election. There's got to be a hope that somehow that may change.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it obviously matters for politicians and for everyone here as well.
Oil is going up.
As you say, for a range of reasons. I mean, there are people in this country with a family in Israel, in Gaza.
Tesla will love this.
We know that it, of course, matters for foreign policy, for, the whole geopolitical tilt, what this means, not just in the Middle East, but well beyond that, as you say,
Israel.
In the US. And, of course, it matters in terms of
NVIDIA, but lots of connections in Israel.
As you said, there is politics here too. We have seen that it can sway votes in an election. And it did take quite a while, I think, to get the Prime Minister's response. I think all the parties have been
brokerages like
quite
Robinhood,
careful with their
major
wording,
news for them.
Yes,
IonQ,
we know
big news for them.
It looks like there is a deal, but it is fragile. The talk of a deal is not the same as the implementation of a deal, and there's no kind of guarantee on long-lasting peace. So
Good
I
news
think
for
we
crypto.
heard Keir Starmer. I mean, you read his
Bitcoin,
statement there.
XRP,
He says it's long
all of
overdue
this.
news. He says our attention must now turn to how we secure a permanently better future for the Israeli and Palestinian people. I think he's been careful with his words. We haven't yet heard, I should say, from Kemi Bade, not from the conversations I've had. I think her team really wanted to make sure that they were certain that this deal had been reached before. So I suspect we will hear something from the Conservatives at some point. I should say, we have heard from some of the smaller parties. Ed Davey was out very quickly saying that this was a moment of hope, but we must look back on this moment as the first step on the road to a lasting peace. And he talked about the need for a two-state solution. So he sort of makes the main point there, this is the first step. And I think we're going to hear a lot of caution from Prime Ministers and politicians here.
Yeah, that does make sense, doesn't it? Ali,
to make sure that they were certain that this deal had been reached before. So I suspect we will hear something from the Conservatives at some point. I should say, we have heard from some of the smaller parties. Ed Davey was out very quickly saying that this was a moment of hope, but we must look back on this moment as the first step on the road to a lasting peace. And he talked about the need for a two-state solution. So he sort of makes the main point there, this is the first step. And I think we're going to hear a lot of caution from Prime Ministers and politicians here.
Yeah, that does make sense, doesn't it? Ali, thank you very much indeed. Ali Fortescue there, our political correspondent. Well, in the last few minutes, the Israeli President, Isaac Herzog, has been speaking in an address to the nation. He said, "My sisters and brothers, citizens of Israel, we are at a most crucial moment. For hundreds of days, our sisters and brothers have been held and tormented by vile murderers after the state of Israel failed in its duty and the most basic covenant between a state and its citizens when it did not protect them and did not prevent their abduction. Now we have an obligation to take a step towards righting this. I offer my support to the Prime Minister and the negotiation team in their efforts to finalise this deal and call upon the Cabinet and the Government of Israel to accept and approve it when presented, bringing our sons and daughters home. As the President of the State of Israel, I say in the clearest terms, this is the right move, this is an important move, this is a necessary move. There is no greater moral, human, Jewish or Israeli obligation than to bring our sons and daughters back to us, whether to recover at home or to be laid to rest. The Israeli president speaking there in the last few moments. And really there, I think, reflecting perhaps that the Israeli committees do have to pass this through. The diplomacy and the politics haven't been finalised yet.
I would expect in the last 45 minutes of the day, going into the close, you will see the markets rally, I would expect. That's what normally happens in these situations.
Great to get your thoughts and your expertise here. How confident are you that this could be a lasting peace?
Well, it's not a lasting peace. It's the beginning of a process, 6-week ceasefire, which is to lead to a second phase.
Yes, this is very good for the stock market.
Would be Israel and Palestine living side by side in secure states with mutual recognition. That's a long, long way away. But this is an absolutely necessary first step to bring an end to the killing and the conflict, and to allow humanitarian supplies into Israel, into Gaza, getting the hostages
hasn't been in a downtrend for 2 years.
I mean, this has been a long time in the making. As your correspondents have said, this very deal was first mooted by Joe Biden last May. Members of the Netanyahu government have been very resistant to this deal. They've had different objectives in Gaza. People like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, the right-wing ministers, have talked about
Sensei, are you doing your live show for XRP or not? I don't know if you sold the 5 months. Let me know, please. I've got it scheduled. I can cancel it if you're not.
Netanyahu has been prepared to call
I'm going to go off air in a couple of minutes.
Considerable pressure from the United States. And I know people are reluctant to give Donald Trump any credit, but I think the fact that there was a new incoming administration, I think that was the tipping point for Netanyahu, to get Netanyahu over the line, because this deal has been on the cards for many, many months and could have been done any time in the last 8 months.
You see, this is the key, isn't it? Of course, President Joe Biden's right when he says, look, he designed this deal, it's his deal. But it can't be a coincidence that it's finally got over the line just days before Donald Trump enters the White House. What do you think it is about the idea of Donald Trump, or the spectre of Donald Trump, that, as you say, did get Netanyahu over the line?
Well, I think, Netanyahu was able, knowing that there was a new administration coming, he didn't have to do any deals with the outgoing administration because they would be yesterday's men as of the 21st of January. So he knows he's going to have to be dealing with Donald Trump for the next 4 years. So that makes a difference. Clearly, Donald Trump's incoming administration has put a lot of pressure on Netanyahu to deliver what certainly Donald Trump will claim as a huge success. The question is, how much pressure are they prepared to put on them going forward? Because a long-term ceasefire, humanitarian aid into Gaza, but at the end of the day, how is Gaza to be run? How is the West Bank to be run? The American administration is still, and our something, certainly Netanyahu's government and the right-wing ministers like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich will oppose to their dying day. The question is can sufficient reassurance be given to the Israelis by the Arab states and by the wider community that their real future lies in a two-state solution, living securely with a peaceful Palestinian state on their borders? We're a long way from that, but this ceasefire, the beginnings of reconstruction in Gaza, the beginnings of humanitarian aid, that's a first step to the long-term future, which is going to be very, very difficult.
You see, this is the key thing, isn't it? And history teaches us the same lessons, doesn't it, every time, that actually it's the political lasting solution, what happens after the fighting stops, that is always the difficult bit, that is always the thing that people fail to get sorted. How, I guess, confident are you that there is a framework to getting some kind of political solution when it comes to Gaza and Israel?
Well, I think the incoming Trump administration will want to build on the Abraham Accords. People will recall, the Abraham Accords were where countries like Bahrain, the UAE, Morocco, Sudan, Arab states basically agreed to normalize relations with Israel. The big prize, in addition to countries like Jordan and Egypt, who'd already made peace treaties with Israel, I mean, I think with changes in Syria, with changes in Lebanon, the big prize will be, will they get Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords? And I think Saudi Arabia's price will be a serious start to talks about a two-state solution. So around one of what Donald Trump's administration would have regarded as a previous success, the Abraham Accords, if he wants to build on that, that can be the framework through which a two-state solution is progressed. So I can see a diplomatic pathway there. It won't be easy because we've been talking about a two-state solution for 50 years. But there is a framework that you could see working.
I guess the other thing that I did want to talk to you about there, you mentioned Saudi Arabia, obviously, is the focus is on, rightly, Israel and Hamas, the agreement between them. But it does feel like what we've seen over the last 15 months has almost transformed the Middle East, the entire region. How
market is continually going up.
The kind of political technology.
Don't be surprised if it rallies into the close.
In that region, I'm thinking about Iran, Saudi Arabia,
it's an amazing day.
How much has changed?
Well, the tectonic plates have shifted. I mean, I think, ironically, the horrific Hamas attack on October the 7th has led to a series of events which have culminated in real change, in the possibility of real change in the Middle East. We see Hezbollah seriously weakened in Lebanon. We see the fall of the Assad regime. We see the possibility of the beginnings of a more inclusive government in Syria. We've seen strategic defeat for Iran in Syria and Lebanon. There is the prospect of a different way forward. There is the prospect of reaching out to Iran. In fact, I would say at this moment, as Iran may have suffered a strategic defeat, this is the moment to reach out to them and say, look, now's the time to come back into the nuclear deal. Now is the time to become a normal country within the Middle East with good relationships with your neighbors, lifting of sanctions, giving up nuclear weapons ambitions, positive Middle East. All that's out there as a possibility. You'd have to be a naive optimist to think that all that's going to happen. But let's try, certainly as a diplomat, I'd want to take advantage of these new possibilities. The tectonic plates have shifted. Let's make sure
I'm
that
only
when they
in
settle,
the S&P 500. 100%.
Better place, more peaceful.
I started at $5,000.
Less conflict.
I've got $250,000 invested.
I mean, no one wants to be a naive
and as you can see, 99.8%
you've got to have a bit of hope
all
in these
the S&P.
Situations.
This is my bank account. This is my credit card.
Optimistic
there is
that
my
this ceasefire deal will last longer than the
balance.
November one that fell apart.
There
after,
is the margin. There is everything.
I think so.
Over $250,000 invested.
The Trump administration
started
will
with
have a lot
$5,000
invested in it. So it has Egypt and Qatar and
100% in the S&P.
They're forming a sort of ceasefire monitoring mechanism. Hamas has been seriously weakened, although they will claim survival for them is victory. But they will want the humanitarian assistance to start flowing in. They will want the beginnings of reconstruction to happen. And they will have used the hostages as their only leverage. I'm reasonably confident. There's lots that could go wrong. And given that there are malign actors on both sides who do not want to see a ceasefire, there are people on the Israeli right who want a continuation of the war so they can achieve their aims of populating Gaza and eliminating the Palestinians. And there'll be people in Hamas for whom war is the better option. But I'm reasonably optimistic that having taken so long to get this, and the fact that the Trump administration will be claiming it as their victory, they will want to invest heavily in ensuring it doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, that does make a lot of
sense.
I
don't own any sound hound. I only own the S&P.
Sharing your knowledge.
As I'm not here to pump and dump any stock. I am mainstream media. I'm only in the S&P.
Well, it is over the line finally after some precarious diplomacy that did risk falling apart right at the 11th hour. A ceasefire deal has been agreed between Israel and Hamas.
It's the other way round.
By Egypt, Qatar.
I have
also
the S&P in my
the
main
United
account,
States.
and
The
Roth
outgoing
IRA is
President Joe
Coca-Cola.
Biden had this to say earlier.
There was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come, for the sake of the people of Israel and the families waiting in agony, and for the sake of the innocent people in Gaza.
Well, after 15 months of bloodshed, of death, of grief, of anger, it feels like that desperate hope that we had of a ceasefire may be moving that bit closer to a reality. It's fragile, it's precarious. What happens in the next days, weeks and months will be, of course, absolutely vital, but we are closer to that point. I can hand you now to Sarah J. Mee as we continue our coverage of this breaking story.
The market is going
Sophie,
up.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Well,
we're
after
following
15 months
developments
of
in this story throughout the evening and into the night here on Sky News. A significant moment, a pause, a respite for those caught up in this conflict as a longer-term solution still appears some way off. But as Sophie was reflecting there in her programme tonight, some optimism and some hope. It is 8 o'clock, our breaking news tonight here on Sky News.
Fantastic.
Sarah J. Mee
Welcome
as we continue
to
our
the
coverage
show.
of this breaking story.
Sophie, thank you very much. Yes, we're following developments in this story throughout the evening and into the night here on Sky News.
As we get into the last hour of the market, you will see it
respite
continue to pick up.
for those caught up in this conflict as a longer-term solution still appears some way off.
You can see on the big screen,
But,
Bank of
Sophie
America
was reflecting
XRP
there
in the morning.
her programme tonight, some optimism.
That'll be very, very
and
exciting with the
some
banks.
Hope. It is
And
8
crypto,
o'clock, our breaking
this
news tonight here on Sky News. After 15 months of fighting, Israel and Hamas have agreed to a Gaza ceasefire deal. In the last hour, the US President and Qatari's Prime Minister confirmed a framework for an agreement has been put in place, and the ceasefire will begin on Sunday.
It gives us great pleasure in Qatar, Egypt, and the United States to announce the success of the joint mediation efforts and the fact that the two belligerents in the Gaza Strip have reached a deal on the prisoner and the hostage swap and announce a ceasefire in the hopes of reaching a permanent ceasefire between the two sides, as well as allowing the access of large quantities of relief aid to the Palestinian brothers in the Gaza Strip. First off, I would like to thank our partners in the Arab Republic of Egypt, the United States of America, notably the envoy to the Middle East of the President-elect, Steve Witkoff, as well as the MENA coordinator at the U.S. National Security Council, Mr. Brett McGurk, for their efforts that contributed to push these negotiations forward and reach this deal. I would also like to express my deepest thanks and gratitude to our brothers from the Arab Republic of Egypt and His Excellency the Minister Hassan Rashad, who have contributed and made serious efforts in collaboration with their Qatari partners in order to make this deal a success.
Sky's Yalda Hakim was in that room in Doha a few hours ago, listening to that, and joins me now. And Yalda, you were reflecting when asking a question in that news conference that, yes, there were many parties involved in this: Hamas, Israel, Egypt, Qatar, but America as well. And I know that you wanted to get an answer to the fact that, you know, Trump is taking office next week in the United States. And was that the push that was needed to get this deal across the line?
Yeah, I mean, SJ, I spoke to the Qatari Prime Minister about 6 weeks ago, and I asked about a ceasefire in Gaza, and at the time we talked about Donald Trump and whether there was pressure coming from the Trump administration, and he said at the time that yes, that was the case. And so he said the last month or so has been significant. He thanked both President Biden's envoy as well as the incoming President Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff. And, you know, when you speak to diplomats here in the region, they
Bitcoin
do
is
say
moving.
that the
This
Trump
is good for
administration
Bitcoin,
played
of course. All crypto will like this stability. There we go. If I share with you Bitcoin.
Because Frank frankly, it is their deal.
And
the deal
XRP
that they put
expect a
together
big
in
day
May
tomorrow with
of
Bank of
last
America.
year,
We're covering
which
it
is the
live.
deal that we're seeing
The
now,
earnings in the morning.
barring a few minor changes and annexes that both sides have squabbled to put into this deal. It
Markets
is the
are
Biden
moving and
administration's
gaining momentum
deal from
too.
May, but neither side came to any kind of agreement. So I put that to the Qatari Prime Minister and just have a listen to what he had to say.
Congratulations. This is a huge moment. You, as you say, have been working on this deal for many months. And the question is, why now? Why this moment? And was it pressure from the incoming Trump administration that got it over the line? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Hilda, for this question. Actually, we've been raising the question of the right moment for the entire period since the collapse of the first phase. But we have seen a momentum that started to build.
Tim Muller, I would have shared it, but you were rude in the comments. You were disrespectful and rude, so I'm not going to focus on you.
I can say that
you chose to be rude, and now you get ignored. Everyone gets a voice here, but if they're rude, like you were,
seeing a collaboration
you get ignored. That's your choice.
Both administration was
You've wasted the opportunity
a clear demonstration for the commitment of the US
to the world.
To that deal. And I really would like to thank both the envoys who are here with us in the last couple of days, and they played a vital role in reaching to this moment.
I can't give you independent financial advice. I don't know your situation, but I started with $5,000. I've now got $250,000 and invested, and I've never shorted a stock. I've never done options. So anyone can make money. It's easy to make money. The hard part is to keep it. I never lose on my trades.
Yielded to this moment.
Yalda, as you rightly pointed out,
it's not how much money you've got, it's what you do with it. That's
from
important.
May of last year, and of course we remember the agreement in November that collapsed after 8 days. What's different about this one? It doesn't come
Bank
into
of America
effect
in the
until
morning.
Sunday. That's a nervous wait.
We're covering the earnings, hoping to hear from Brian Moynihan about XRP. I'll be covering it live. The videos are out there, the information's out there. It's on all my socials.
Yeah, SJ, so many similar questions being asked in the room. I asked why this moment. Other journalists asked why this would be different, given
Let me share the event so you don't miss
November
it.
2023, where we saw just over 100 hostages
Homepage
released.
of the
Those
channel.
Moving images of the
Upcoming
Red
live
Cross
streams.
convoy making its way
XRP,
out of Gaza into
Bank of America
Israeli territory.
in the morning.
Those convoys full
all the
of
videos
Israeli
promoting it.
and dual nationals,
Right
children,
there.
women,
Just
the elderly,
come
the
out.
sick, making their way out of Gaza. And as you say, within 8 days, that deal collapsed. And there have been significant moments over the course of the last 15 months, but frankly, a lot of criticism
don't buy now, of course.
of Israel and
Everything's
how
pumping.
they've prosecuted
We bought
this
it at
war.
38 cents.
46,000 plus Palestinians have been left dead. Half of those have been children. And the one thing that Israeli officials have maintained over the course of the last 15 months, certainly every time I've spoken to them,
Yes,
when I've said, what
it's
does
the main
victory
reason
look
why
like
it's
to
moving.
you? They have said the eradication of Hamas. And just yesterday,
We have the #1
the
Bank of
outgoing
America
US
XRP
Secretary
video
of
in the
State
world.
Antony Blinken
That's why it's moving.
said that for the number of Hamas militants that have been killed over the course of the last 15 months, Hamas has managed to recruit just as many. So there is concern that this vicious cycle of violence is going to continue. But there is no doubt that the Trump administration's pressure, and again, like I said, diplomats in the region have said that the Trump officials and the envoys that have been shuttling back and forth to Israel, back to here in Doha, putting pressure on all parties has played a significant role. And also no doubt that the Trump administration
You're very welcome, thank you.
And has a stake in this. So there is pressure mechanisms that the Qatari Prime Minister has spoken about. But as you say, it is unnerving because there is this wait until Sunday. Donald Trump's inauguration is on Monday, and it is going to be 42 days, roughly 6 weeks, where we will see 33 hostages being released. Now, the makeup of those hostages and who they are is unclear at this stage. What we are being told is that they will be women.
If you wish to discuss it with the family about your situation, become a member of the channel. It's a couple of bucks. And then you can call live into the show, ask me a question live on air, and all our members can assist you. There's the membership link. There's Discord. We provide free training.
Negotiation. It's an incredibly
I cover all the
complex
costs to help
deal.
people out.
It will involve getting aid convoys, about 600 trucks a day into Gaza. At one point, I've spoken to officials in Israel who have said, to the north of Israel, to the north of Gaza, there has been criticism because at one point there wasn't even 70 trucks going in. There was concern around famine. So these things will need to be carefully monitored by those on the ground. And of course, the fabric of society in Gaza has also completely collapsed over the course of the last 15 months. There have been
Please tap the like button, share this out. We want more people to be aware of this great
criminal
news.
Gangs are operating, different militias operating in Gaza as well. All of these things will be watched very carefully. So there is no guarantee that this ceasefire will hold. But tonight, there is hope. And might I also add that this ceasefire doesn't come into effect until Sunday. So the bombardment, the fighting will continue up until that point. We were talking to some of the journalists, Palestinian journalists who were evacuated from Gaza and are here in Doha at the moment. And they have said that they have told colleagues, friends and families to stay put, stay where they are, because there is no guarantee that there won't be an intensification of bombardment between now and Sunday. So there is a lot at stake. And as you say, why is this moment different? It may not be. But for now, there is hope that unlike the past 15 months or so, or at least since November of 2023, we haven't seen a moment like this. So there is great optimism here this evening.
Yalda, thank you. Yalda Hakim for us in Doha. Yalda will return a little later this evening with more on this story, which we are following throughout the course of the next hour and beyond. The US President speaking at the White House in the last hour. We can have a listen to what Joe Biden had to say about what's happened.
There was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come, for the sake of the
Market
people of
is
Israel
still going up.
and the families waiting in agony, and for the sake of the innocent people in Gaza who suffered unimaginable devastation because of the war. The Palestinian people have gone through hell. Too many innocent people have died. Too many communities have been destroyed.
Sorry, PA, your
And this
comment
deal,
doesn't make any sense, not based
people of
upon any
Gaza can finally
fundamentals
recover
whatsoever.
and rebuild.
I disagree with you
They can look to a
100%.
future without Hamas.
I wouldn't
in
be in
power.
by 250,000 if I thought
You know,
what
the
you're
Bible
thinking.
says, blessed are the peacemakers. Many peacemakers help make this deal happen.
Let's go live to Jerusalem and our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, who is following this story from there. And Alistair, we've heard so much about how these negotiations have been painstaking and precarious. That pretty much remains the situation, doesn't it? Because the ceasefire does not come into effect until Sunday. So what is the reaction there? Cautious optimism?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's, the reaction in Gaza is euphoria, as you'd expect. People, within minutes of the news breaking, out on the streets of the major cities in Gaza, or at least where they can be. I mean, very few civilians remain.
I can't do a whole Bitcoin
Places like
prediction now.
Khan
I've
Yunis,
just
of course, the Al-Mawasi
discussed
camp that is now
crypto
this
for a couple of
sprawling,
hours this morning.
Humanitarian
We're covering
refugee
the
camp on the coast
ceasefire
of
news
Gaza.
at the moment.
Huge
to focus on my
celebrations there.
members.
They've been nervously awaiting this moment for days as it looked as though it was coming. And celebrations here in Israel too. Of course, the hostage families, their relatives, their friends, their supporters, they have been protesting every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, against the government, calling for the government to do a deal. Well, finally that deal looks as though it's been done, but there is still some way to go, as you say. I mean, we have the Israeli Security Cabinet expected to meet tomorrow. They will need to approve the deal, and we expect that to happen, but there is...
It depends if Brian Moynihan in the Bank of America earnings in the morning mentions XRP. We'll be covering it live. Join us live for that event. So we learn directly from Bank of America.
Now, I would expect that there will be fighting that will continue. There were airstrikes in Gaza overnight, and what you normally find in the hours leading up to a ceasefire is both sides use those final hours to try and make some military gains, to try and have the final say. I mean, it's as crude as that sometimes. And so it would not surprise me if there were further airstrikes in Gaza in the coming days. It would not surprise me if Hamas continues to fight Israeli forces there. So everybody's holding their breath.
Here is the link
This
to
is
the Bank of
welcome news
America
for most people
XRP
here,
event.
despite there being some opposition
Here's the
to
homepage
it
of the
within
channel.
Israel, but people will be nervously
Upcoming live
waiting,
streams. Click
for
on that
Sunday
in
to
your
come
time
around.
zone. It's right there.
And what I would say finally,
There's the link.
it is a ceasefire. It is an end to the fighting. That is not the same as achieving peace. Peace for the Israelis.
There you go.
Peace against the threat from Hamas, but also peace for the Palestinians who are in Gaza and have to now rebuild a destroyed society and a destroyed territory of their own.
Yeah, those bigger questions, no answers as yet. Hopefully in the fullness of time, as you said, that longer term solution still appears some way off. Alistair, perhaps you could talk to us about the families of the hostages, because over the last 460 plus days, they have held out
Thank
hope
you so much, Bernie.
of their loved ones
Your support for the
returning.
music
I
channel
know
is
that
helping me raise millions for
protests
charity.
in Jerusalem.
Thank you, thank you.
You've
Can't
said
thank you
bring
enough.
traffic to a stop. They turn out on the streets to make sure that their loved ones are not forgotten. How will they be feeling? Because there has been an information vacuum about which hostages
Bitcoin
are
is
alive
moving. No
and which
surprise on this
hostages
news.
are not. And this is the moment. Answers.
There are 98 hostages who are part of this ceasefire deal. 94 of them were taken on October the 7th, and there are 4 other hostages that actually went to Gaza in 2014. Of the 94 taken on October the 7th, the Israeli military believes that probably more than half of them have been killed and have died whilst in Gaza. They think that of the 33 set to be released as part of the first phase of the deal, they think most of them are alive, and these are all sort of details that they'll be seeking to get confirmation from Hamas and from other groups like Islamic Jihad and others who have been holding them all this time. But beyond that, for the families, a lot of it is unknown. A lot of families have had no word of their loved ones, either proof of life or claims of death in the last 15 and a half months. And so they will nervously be waiting to see whether their loved ones come out and come out alive. Then there are other families. I spoke to a father yesterday here in Jerusalem who was opposing the deal. And the reason he was opposing the deal is his son was fighting the IDF on October the 7th, was taken into Gaza. And because he's an IDF soldier, he is a high-value asset for Hamas. So he's not part of the first phase of releases. He will be held back for future negotiations. 23, gosh, it seems such a long time ago now when there's that 7-day ceasefire. Well, it collapsed. It collapsed after 7 days. And, there's a real fear, and I'm sure it's the same, it's replicated in Gaza, that this deal will not make it beyond the first phase. And, if that doesn't happen, if it doesn't make it beyond the first phase, then for Gaza,
I do not send friend requests. Please be careful. You send me a friend request, I accept it. Ben Robin, if you are on Discord, send me a friend request. Scammers send friend requests. I never follow anyone. I never send friend requests. There's my friend request. There's my name on Discord. Send me a friend request. If you are a member on Discord, I will upgrade you and I'll accept it. I do not send them. There's the link in the chat.
Nomi Bar Yaakov. First of all, I'd just like to start by asking your reaction.
I've never sent you a friend request, and I never will.
Momentous, historic moment.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. It is a momentous moment. It's a moment that we've been waiting for 15 months.
Welcome,
and
YouTube watcher.
Since the last ceasefire broke in November of last year, of 2023. Now it's 2 years. It's fantastic, and it's a first stage in a very, very long path to hopefully settling the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and getting to the stability that the Middle East is now craving, especially with changes in Lebanon, Syria, Iran. This really is a fantastic opportunity to put all the efforts into ensuring that this ceasefire where the potential for breaches is immense, and where the Qataris and the Americans and the Egyptians have set up a monitoring mechanism, so for monitoring and compliance and verification, which will be based in Egypt, as the Qatari Prime Minister, Sheikh Al-Thani, had very clearly stated during his press conference today. So there's much hope, and there will be lots of hurdles. We know that there will be breaches. We know that there will be problem, and we all need to brace
Robin,
for
all
them
done. You
and
can now
work
access all
with
our free
the
training.
mediators.
We cover all the costs. You can
Naomi,
speak to
bear with me for
Sensei,
just a
crypto
second. I just
charts,
want to bring
everything,
our
all the
viewers
family.
a
It's
statement
part of the
from the Foreign
service.
Secretary,
You are
British
in.
Foreign Secretary
Friend request
David Lammy
accepted.
has just
Do
released
not
this,
accept any from
after
anybody
this
else. I
evening's
never send messages. Good
ceasefire
luck to you.
announcement. He said today's ceasefire agreement is a moment of hope after over a year of agony following Hamas's appalling attack on October 7th, 2023. For the hostages and their loved ones, including British citizen Emily Damari and Eli Sharabi, Oded Lifshitz and Avinantan Orr, this has been an unbearable trauma. For the people of Gaza, so many of whom have lost lives, homes or loved ones, this has been a living nightmare. For the region, this has brought yet more division and conflict. With this agreement, hostages and their families will be reunited and Gazans can begin to rebuild their lives. I pay tribute to the tireless diplomatic efforts of Qatar, Egypt, and the incoming and outgoing US administrations. Much remains to be done to implement this in full to all phases of the deal and establish a pathway to lasting peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians alike. From our first day in office, this government has pressed for an immediate ceasefire to free the hostages and to bring relief, reconstruction and hope to civilians who have suffered so much. We will play our full part in the coming days and weeks, working alongside our partners to seize this chance for a better future. That was a statement this evening from the British Foreign Secretary, David Lammy. Naomi, thank you so much for taking a pause just so I could bring that to our viewers. That's just coming into us here at Sky News. I wonder if you could take us behind the scenes, if you like, to these negotiations that have been going on for some time. You know, we hark back to November 2023, that agreement collapsing after 8 days. The negotiations to get us to this point have been called painstaking, precarious, complicated. I mean, it feels like those words don't even cover it. You have Israel, you have Hamas, you have the United States, Egypt and Qatar. President Biden himself saying, you know, after decades in foreign policy, this was one of the toughest negotiations he has ever experienced. Can you give us an idea of the effort that has gone in to just reach this stage?
Well, I think it's a bit cheeky of David Lammy to claim credit and to say that the UK has done everything that they can for the last 15 months to try to get to a ceasefire. I certainly think that a lot more could have been done by the United Kingdom to end this earlier. I do think that the Qataris and the Egyptians and the Americans have been working painstakingly 24/7 for 15 months under very difficult circumstances. There is a very right-wing government in Israel and a prime minister that had certainly put himself ahead of the well-being of his own people and especially of the hostages. And it has actually been reported that his family, some of his family members have urged him not to agree to this deal. And we know that the negotiators were still negotiating right up until the moment that the Qatari Prime Minister very bravely came down and gave the press conference. But President-elect Donald Trump preempted this move by Netanyahu potentially, and he tweeted that a deal is done. And of course, he also claimed responsibility for him, which is what Donald
Tim
Trump
Muller, I
does.
asked you to be
But
respectful. You couldn't be
the issue is that
respectful,
once,
so
Trump
we've hidden you from the
tweeted,
channel.
Netanyahu
Now you
could
have no
renege
voice.
and could not add
Never even spoke about
more and
Rigetti.
more and more
You're talking
demands.
nonsense.
So
Goodbye.
the issue has been that
You are the
sides
weakest
have
link.
been
Goodbye.
adding demands once agreements have been reached. And we have many times thought that the agreements have been sealed and then a demand came from one side or another. And very often by this side, whereby Netanyahu is basically held hostage, but out of choice by his own right-wing government. He chose to stay in power over the well-being, not only of his own people, but of Gaza and risking a regional war. I mean, we're very lucky, very unlucky that there are 47,000
Hello from
Palestinian
Holland.
dead, and
I
who knows how
work a
many
lot
buried
in
under the
Netherlands,
rubble, and over 100,000
in
Palestinians
Amsterdam. Wonderful to have you here.
very seriously wounded, mainly women and children. And Gaza is totally destroyed. I mean, it's a catastrophe, and it's a humanitarian catastrophe. It's part of this deal, and that's one of the potential.
Let me just do this. Welcome to the show, all guests, family and friends from Holland, or otherwise known as the Netherlands. Wonderful to have you here. Welcome to the show. We're live 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. We aim to be the best, most honest, trusted network in the world. That is our aim. Thank you for being here.
Very clear who will govern Gaza after this agreement is implemented.
Welkom bij de show, alle gasten, familie en vrienden uit Holland of ook wel bekend als Nederland. Geweldig om u hier te hebben. Welkom bij de show. We zijn 12 uur per dag, 5 dagen per week live. We streven ernaar om het beste, meest eerlijke en vertrouwde netwerk ter wereld te zijn. Dat is ons doel. Bedankt dat u hier bent.
Because to them because there will be many violations, and we need to work with it and not against it.
Naomi, the hard work isn't over after this announcement.
The hard work begins.
No, exactly. In essence, it begins all over again, and indeed maybe even more difficult, because of course this ceasefire is the precursor to the opening of negotiations to bring an end to the war, to bring peace. Joe Biden saying that negotiations will continue the ceasefire will continue for as long as the negotiations continue. This is going to be long-term, isn't it? Talk us through how this will unfold. It's still very early days. The ceasefire hasn't even come into effect yet. It's coming into effect on Sunday. But that look forward to the next stage of these negotiations will begin.
On day 16 of the first stage, which is 42 days. But negotiations are continuing overnight in Doha at present. I mean, we've taken a deep breath. The Prime Minister, the Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister.
Welcome our guests from Egypt today. I've visited Egypt many times, stayed in Luxor, Cairo, have a few friends from Egypt. It's wonderful to have you here. We aim to be the most honest, trusted channel on YouTube TV, live 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. Welcome to the show. Consider becoming a member of the family. We are here to help. Welcome to you and everyone from Egypt.
مرحبا بضيوفنا من مصر. اليوم لقد زرت مصر عدة مرات وأقمت في الأقصر والقاهرة ولدي بعض الأصدقاء من مصر. إنه لأمر رائع أن نستضيفك هنا ونهدف إلى أن نكون القناة الأكثر صدقا وثقة على يوتيوب. بث مباشر على الهواء 12 ساعة في اليوم 5 أيام في الأسبوع. مرحبا بك في العرض. فكر في أن تصبح عضوا في العائلة. نحن هنا للمساعدة. مرحبا بك وبكل شخص من مصر.
A time hasn't been set for the Israeli cabinet to vote on this. That also needs to take place. A lot can happen in 3 days, but the agreement, because the United States is exercising the leverage, the new incoming administration, the Trump administration, is exercising the leverage over Israel that the Biden administration failed to exercise.
And of course, the timing this weekend with a ceasefire coming into effect on Sunday and then President Trump being sworn in on Monday. And Naomi, we must leave it there. Naomi Bar-Yaakov, International Negotiator, Associate Fellow of International Security Programme at Chatham House. Thank you for your time this evening. We really appreciate it. Our next guest is standing by, Amy Shallan, Chair of the British Palestinian Committee. Amy, thank you for waiting to speak to us. Thank you for joining us on the programme to give us your reaction to this historic moment.
Well, I think the past 15 months of relentless massacre and starvation of the people of Gaza has really shown the world just how far Israel is willing and able to go in advancing its expansionist agenda. We've seen tens of thousands killed, and a new study in The Lancet recently estimated the death toll to be 40% higher than the official number, which would be almost 65,000 women, men and children. And we're seeing really that this ceasefire agreement
Yes, I
is
have been to
almost
go. I've been
word
all
for
over
word the
India.
same deal that Israel rejected
Lovely country,
back
a
in
lot of
May.
culture,
So it's
a lot of wonderful
quite
smells and
shameful that it's
fragrances
taken
in
this long
India
to
as well.
get to a ceasefire.
I love the
And
place.
US
Thank you very
and
much.
the UK and the international community more broadly has not only failed to push for a ceasefire, but we've seen Keir Starmer upending parliamentary protocol to avoid Labour rebellion on the issue. And we've seen governments enabling and greenlighting genocide
Text-Pacific
by
Land did
sending
exactly what we
billions of
said it would
dollars of
do.
weapons and military support.
It sold off
to aid
when we
the
knew about
onslaught.
Donald Trump.
So it's
And
really
then
likely that after
it's been
these 15
rallying
months,
once
it's
it
going
found
to
its
take
support.
at least 15
Congratulations
years to clear
all
more than
who bought this
42
dip.
million
We
tons
brought it to you
of
here,
rubble.
hundreds of
And then
percent
thinking
up.
about the
Amy,
trauma
that is a really pertinent point in terms of this ceasefire doesn't come into effect until Sunday. That's effectively 4 more days. There's no indication that any bombardments will stop. We understand they may well continue as they have been throughout the last 15 months. But when they do stop on Sunday, what are you left with? What is there for Gaza? We understand that, you know, there is a lot of talk about hostages, but there's also a big conversation about aid. Finally, you know, addressing this humanitarian crisis that is ongoing in Gaza. Presumably that is a real point of concern for you, to see that upheld and implemented just as urgently as the hostage exchange.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen everything being levelled to the ground. We've seen Gaza's hospitals being destroyed. We've seen Gaza's universities, the 12 higher education institutions, the buildings being destroyed. But although the buildings are gone, the people and the institutions are still there. And they've been not only trying to just survive, but against all odds, they've been striving to provide a community of care for the people of Gaza. So any aid, any rebuilding really has to be led by and centre Palestinians. They've been doing it all the way through this, and they need to be absolutely at the centre of efforts to rebuild Gaza. And that also entails accountability. And we're just hearing now about peace. What does peace mean?
Thank you very
Peace
much
means
indeed. Jordan, the
accountability.
music show on Friday
The
night.
international community,
And this whole
including our
studio
own
comes to
government
life
in the UK, really
with
has
special
to act
effects,
very
lighting, and we
swiftly
put a concert
to
on.
ensure a
Elton
permanent
John
end
named me
to
the world
attacks
piano
on
man. Here's the
Palestinians.
link for the
And
music
not
channel.
only in Gaza, but across Palestine, and actively really seek accountability for war crimes and all violations of international law.
Gaza look like in the future, Amy? Because, you know, you talk there about you believe it'll be at least 15 years to clear more than 42 million tonnes of rubble. That's before any rebuild. We know that over 90% of the population in Gaza have been displaced. We talk about people returning to their homes in Gaza. What do they return to?
Well, we've seen that so many of them have had their homes destroyed, their places of worship destroyed, cultural institutions destroyed. The buildings, as I say, so many of the buildings are gone. But Gaza was built from tents, you know, in terms of those institutions. It wasn't just the local population. But let's remember that that population in Gaza is 85% of it is a refugee population from 1948, when they were pushed there in 1948 during the catastrophe, the Nakba for Palestinians. So essentially, you know, Gaza is used to also rebuilding itself. It has been through many of these attacks. But having after Israel has dropped more than 85,000 tons of bombs in 1 year, and that is equivalent, just think on this, that's equivalent to almost 6 bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima. So that's why I'm saying what is urgently needed is accountability, so that this cannot happen again. And the UK has a role to be leading on that rather than doing what it's been doing until now, which is to shield an occupying power from accountability. And that means pushing for the arrest and prosecution of at the ICC of Israeli officials for war crimes and crimes against humanity. It means immediately ceasing the provision of military support to Israel and suspending
Very happy to discuss Bitcoin. I just can't do it
licenses
on this
and
show. We've
imposing
got to
a
focus on
two-way
our
arms
members.
embargo.
Iron,
And it
if you want to
means
become
dropping
one of our members, you can, but we have to
2030
focus on the
roadmap for
members and the
UK-Israel
news at
bilateral
hand.
relations and imposing economic and diplomatic sanctions in order to apply pressure on Israel to ensure that it abides by its international obligations that have been set out in the ICJ advisory opinion on the legal consequences of its prolonged occupation. And absolutely critically, it also means defending Palestinian self-determination by preventing further Israeli colonization and rejecting any initiatives that impose reconstruction plans in Gaza that bypass Palestinian civil society.
Amy Shallan, Chair of the British
Love to
Palestinian
talk to you
Committee.
more.
Thank you for
I
coming
also
on to Sky
live
News
in
this
audio
evening,
and video.
to share your views in reaction to the breaking
I've had my
news
own
tonight
Vegas
that
show. I've
ceasefire,
produced my own
agreed
shows
between
and been the
Israel
Phantom
and
of the
Hamas,
Opera. And
due to come into effect on Sunday.
love to talk to you. Be part of the family and love
Let's
to
go live to Washington
have a
now.
conversation
We'll speak to our US correspondent, Mark Stone. Mark, talk to us about the reaction in America. We heard from Donald Trump before we heard from President Biden, but we did get a news conference from President Biden. What did we learn about America's role in this tonight?
Yes, hi, SJ. Donald Trump was the first to respond to this news in a statement, a lengthy statement on his own social media site, Truth Social. He took full credit for the ceasefire, for the deal that has been put together. He effectively said it was his deal and that it would never have happened had he not won the election back in November. I think it is rather more nuanced than that, but it is also the case, I think, that the deal would not have come about at this moment if Donald Trump was not about to enter the White House for a few reasons. It is also the case that the outgoing president, Joe Biden, who delivered a statement here at the White House about an hour or so ago, his team should take some considerable credit for this deal happening now, because they have been working for so long to try and make it happen. But I think the combination of the two teams working together, which was pretty unprecedented. The incoming envoy for the Middle East, Trump's envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, was working side by side in Doha with his counterpart in Biden's outgoing team, Brett McGurk. They were working together alongside the Qataris, the Egyptians, Israel, and others as well to make this ceasefire.
I am only in the
happen.
SNP.
That is unprecedented.
So this channel is
that
not a pump and
coordination
dump
was
channel.
clearly very, very important.
Mainstream
Biden
media. I
pointed
only
that
own
out,
the
but he
S&P
wasn't
500.
willing to give Trump any credit, just as Trump wasn't willing to give him any credit. I think quite a lot has changed. I mean, the point is that the deal that has been
everyone's
opinions
get
pretty
shared.
Much identical
Just
to the one that
don't be
Biden
offensive.
put on the
That's
table
fine.
back in May last year. So what has changed? Well, the facts on the ground have changed. The picture on the ground has changed significantly in the sense that Hamas has been further degraded in Gaza. Hamas, of course, is a proxy of Iran. Iran's other proxies across the region
Bell goes in 20 minutes. We'll ring the bell.
Have been decimated with Israel fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon, taking out its leader Nasrallah. Syria having a complete change of regime with the fall of Assad, and Iran itself being degraded significantly. All of that has happened really quite quickly. Biden is taking credit for that, which again I think is a bit rich, because it was the Biden administration that told Israel not to attack Hezbollah in Lebanon, not to take out Nasrallah, and yet they did it anyway. So I think both sides are claiming far more credit than they should. But the fact is that the cooperation of the two sides and the unpredictability of Donald Trump, the fact that he said just a few weeks ago and has repeated on a number of occasions that all hell would break loose if the hostages were not released, if a deal did not come, that focused minds. No one quite knew what Donald Trump meant by that. Was it an empty threat? Possibly, but maybe not. That's Trump. And so I think that focused minds minds, and not least it focused Netanyahu's mind, because while Netanyahu has realised over the past 18 months that he didn't need to dance to Joe Biden's tune, that was proven by the fact that he rode over every one of Joe Biden's red lines and nothing happened. He knew he could do what he wanted with Joe Biden. He doesn't know that with Donald Trump because of the character that Donald Trump is, and he needs Donald Trump because he wants to further the Abraham Accords. They were put in place under Trump's last presidency. They are all about normalizing Israeli relations with other nations, Arab nations in the Middle East. He knows that he wants to get that done, and he needs Donald Trump to do that. So he needed to dance to Donald Trump's tune, and so he did today.
Yes, VU is the best option,
Mark,
way
thank you,
better than
Mark
SPY,
Stone,
as I've explained many
Washington.
times.
We're going to stay in
VU
Washington
is
now
for
our
investors.
next guest, Dana Stroll,
SPY
former
is for
Middle East
traders,
policy
and I don't
official
mean traders who
at
trade
the
10 times a
Pentagon.
day.
Dana,
I mean
thank you for joining
traders who
us on
trade
Sky News
millions
to
of
react
times
to
a day.
what is unfolding this evening, this ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas set to come into effect, phase 1 on Sunday. We were just hearing from our US correspondent, Mark Stone there.
20 minutes to go. Market's been rallying ever since this news broke.
The Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration. President Biden saying essentially the teams worked as one on this.
I couldn't agree more. I think what is remarkable about how we arrived at this situation is that the two teams, both Biden and Trump, despite real vitriol and really heated rhetoric during the campaign and in the weeks after Donald Trump won the election.
There's all my links, Instagram and X. There's our free training in Discord, and there's our membership links for all the perks and benefits.
The Israeli hostages out
We're about to
of
ring the
Gaza.
bell.
It has been well over a year, and there are still tremendous numbers of Biden administration officials on the ground in Israel working right now on how that surge in humanitarian aid to Gaza will be implemented.
What is the US influence in all of this? Clearly it's significant in getting this ceasefire over
They're
the line.
exactly
But
the
as
same,
President
other than
Biden
the expense
himself pointed out
ratio.
earlier on, this is the same
Exactly.
deal he put on the table back
That's
in
why
May.
you choose VU.
Donald Trump
Less
is being inaugurated
volume.
on Monday.
It's
Is
designed
that
for
really
investors,
what
not
got
traders
this
of
over the
millions of
line?
trades a
Because
day. Always by VU.
I just wonder,
not SPY.
you know, Benjamin Netanyahu ignored Biden, as Mark Stone was pointing out there, on a number of occasions in this conflict. Yet he has chosen to act just as Donald Trump's coming in. Is that just a coincidence, or can we link the two?
I think it's great that Donald Trump looked at the ceasefire deal that Joe Biden put on the table last
We're using
May
Sky
and decided
News
that
because
this
it's
was
British
good for
news.
Israel.
It's not biased
The
in
best
any way.
way to
We're
get
not trying to
Israeli
be
hostages,
Democrat or
out of
Republican. If I
Gaza.
show CNN or
What's
Fox,
different
it's
is
just going to be a
not
waste of
just
time. It's
Donald
always going to be
Trump's election, though I
opinionated.
think the
We're not
incoming
bringing you opinions. We're
administration
bringing
and
you
the
facts.
anticipated changes
That's why I'm using
certainly
Sky
are
News,
moving
in case you
decision
wondered.
makers all across the Middle East. But it's also how drastically the Middle East has changed since last May. And that happened on Biden's watch. So let's not forget Hamas.
We're not here to pump either president. We're here just to give you the facts so we can make money as investors.
Hezbollah has been decimated
End
in
of.
Lebanon. Bashar al-Assad fled to Moscow, no longer Iran's state partner in Syria. And Israel has effectively targeted military strikes inside Iran twice. And that was enabled
We've got a
by
bell,
the
thank you.
unprecedented
You'll hear it
level
in a
of
minute.
military support and military capabilities that the United States sent to the region. And the Israel Defense Forces have been able to do what they did.
Profit
because of
taking
the
just
support
before
they
the bell.
received from the
It'll
Biden
rally again, I'm 100% certain.
We move from the politics of this now to the people, and the talk over the next few days, weeks and months will be about the people, the hostages, those in Gaza, desperate. There's a humanitarian crisis there in desperate need of aid. So, you know, a lot of people will say, you know, it should have been the focus on the people rather than the politics all along. But while that is the focus of the next few
Tesla is
weeks and
booming
months,
on this
there is
news because of its
another
connections
phase
in
coming,
Israel.
And that's the work towards a longer
Absolutely booming on this news.
solution.
No surprise
it still
there.
seems a long way off, but might
Which
will be
means,
starting to
things
focus
like,
towards
quantum
that.
computers
And in
will do
terms
well
of the
too.
future of the Middle East,
Google,
you know, I spoke to a
Microsoft,
guest a little bit earlier
Nvidia,
on
huge,
from the British
huge
Palestinian
position in
Committee, who said,
Israel.
you know,
Great
life
for
in Gaza
Nvidia.
just can't go back to normal. There has been a fundamental change here.
Massive
It's
day
been
today.
razed
Tilray
to
brands
the
worth
ground.
zero.
Communities displaced. People
No
have
value
lost
at all. Do not buy
everything.
Tilray brands at the moment.
How do you go back to some kind of
Probably don't buy Tilray brands at all, actually.
new normal,
Ion
if you
Q,
like?
Quantum, Israel. Big news.
I agree with your earlier guest. We can't go back to a new normal. And I think Israeli society is profoundly changed and
XRP,
irreversibly changed.
looking forward to Bank of
as
America
is
in the morning.
Palestinian society, both in the West Bank and Gaza. So first of all, this is a very human moment. There's an opportunity to recenter both on the Israeli hostages.
Can everyone tap the like button,
deserve
please, to share this news out?
Under the terrible
We want to get 100 likes so YouTube will suggest the video.
Hamas.
It's big news
And
for the
also
world,
the
great news for
Palestinian
investors
civilians in Gaza
and
who
everybody
deserve
involved.
so much more than they receive from the government under Hamas. But humanitarian aid in the surge
Palantir
is really
is
just
good,
the
but
first
too
step.
expensive.
The next is what is going to happen for the people of Gaza. Is there the potential
200
for a
times
Palestinian
earnings.
state
Too expensive right now.
alongside Israel? And who's going to govern Gaza? And there's yet no agreement, no political consensus on what that is going to look like. And it's going to need to be a huge focus of discussions between this Israeli government and the Trump administration.
Dana Strahl, former Middle East policy official at the Pentagon, really appreciate your time speaking to us this evening, reacting to the breaking news. If you are just joining us tonight,
XRP
Israel
picking
and
up speed
Hamas
again.
have reached a ceasefire deal after 15 months of conflict. It has been confirmed this evening. It comes into effect, phase 1 on Sunday. We'll take you through the different
15 minutes
and
ago
details
before
we
we
have
ring the
so
bell.
far of that ceasefire deal shortly here on Sky News. But let's go now to Alison Griffin, Head of Humanitarian Campaigns at Save the Children. And Alison, I was just reflecting with Dana there about the shift from politics to people. That is what people are going to focus on in the coming days and week. Hostages and the humanitarian crisis. What's Save the Children's reaction to this historic moment this evening?
Well, there's a sense of relief. I'm thinking about my colleagues who are in Gaza tonight. I'm thinking about the million children or so who've been caught up in this living nightmare for the last 15 months. If this ceasefire is implemented, this pause will be vital, a vital breath for Palestinian children to be away from bullets and bombs, a vital breath for Israeli children who have been held hostage to be reunited with their families, but it must be permanent. Save the Children and other aid agencies can start saving lives now, but the government of Israel needs to vastly increase the aid that is allowed in. It needs to stop these arbitrary restrictions that we've seen on vital goods, things like neonatal care kits, things like tent poles being taken out of tents. It's about trucks, and we can get aid in on trucks. We can save the lives of children who are on the brink of famine, children who are so malnourished tonight that they can't absorb normal food. We can bring in something called peanut paste, which saves lives in a couple of days. We can truck water in, but this cannot be just about trucks. This has to be about an end to the occupation, an end to the siege, an end to the reasons why children are dying of starvation and other and all the rest of what we've seen over the last 15 months.
Alison, I can sense the urgency in your voice, and like you said, it isn't about trucks, but in the short term, it is going to be.
Congratulations! I think we bought Palantir at $9.
People and need it. The
yeah, great at $20. Well done. I mean, you can hold it forever now. It's part of the S&P 500.
How much do you?
But don't buy it now. It's 200 times earnings. Congratulations!
What are NGOs' involvements now? Because they've said that they're going to let aid in as part of this deal. How does that all come into effect? How does it work behind the scenes? How do you get involved to make it happen?
Save Children's a global organisation. We've been working on the ground in Gaza for more than 40 years. We're in capitals like London, where I am. I think what we're seeing most is that the horrors that children have experienced in the last 15 months here has become normal. We've seen babies who've needed amputations before even getting the chance to learn to walk. That can never be normal again, and that's what we are using the evidence that we're seeing from on the ground to advocate, to campaign, to stop this. The scale of this cannot happen. These violations of international law on this scale, international humanitarian law that was put in place to protect all of us, this cannot continue to happen, and perpetrators must be held to account. It's wonderful to see the international communities come together, but they must ensure that atrocities like this, that have happened to Palestinian children, must never happen again, and to no child anywhere.
What are the long-term effects of this on the children of Gaza? Because, as I said, in the weeks and months, it will be about, aid, getting in there to help them, medical assistance that they haven't been able to access. But the long-term effects of this, 90% of the population displaced, homes gone, whole towns gone. What are we looking at longer term here in terms of helping them? Because sitting here, it seems unfathomable. It seems like such a big task.
Yeah, and if you're a family in Gaza and we've seen what life has been like, sharing a toilet with 600 people, children desperate to just regain a bit of childhood. Some of the work that Save the Children has been doing is creating safe spaces as far as we possibly can, where children can just play, where adults can drop their children off with key advisors who can help support their mental health while adults have to go and find food. Just for an hour a day, that relief to just be a child again is so important. What I don't think we cannot possibly know the toll of the mental health, the mental harm that has happened over this period of time. But the international community must be there to help support both the
This is the
infrastructure,
XRP
mental
event
health
next.
support,
It's
and
going
get
to go
children back
early,
in
straight
school.
after the bell.
Children haven't been in school for over a year. Get education back on the agenda. So what's left of this generation of children can start to regrow, can start to develop. And that starts with the international community doing things like it has today. But it also starts with governments like the UK to stop being complicit in what has happened to children, to stop taking half measures when it comes to accountability, when it comes to holding perpetrators to account, to use the diplomatic clout that it's got to make sure that ceasefire lasts, to make sure we can get aid in and start the process of healing, to avert a famine, and to make sure those legal mechanisms, the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, are in place and supported to bring perpetrators to account and to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Alison Griffin, Head of Humanitarian Campaigns at Save the Children, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Well, we're joined now on Sky News by Yotam Cohen, whose brother Nimrod Cohen was taken hostage by Hamas.
We're going to ring the bell in 9 minutes' time. This is fantastic news. End of the war.
Really good of you
and then
to
we're going
join
to
us
go
tonight to react
live to our XRP special
news,
for a few minutes.
Your initial thoughts tonight.
And then we're done for the evening.
First of all, I think it's a major step and a big sigh of relief for us as hostage families, and I think for the entirety of the people of Israel. But for me and for many certain families of hostages, this is just the first step, and there are many more steps to be taken until we get our loved one back. My brother, who was a soldier that was taken into Gaza, will only be released on the second phase, and so our struggle has changed and has shifted from advocating for a hostage deal to now advocating for a lasting and comprehensive hostage deal that will ensure all the hostages back home.
Yes, because I would imagine that's the concern for you and your family, that it is in phases and it doesn't come into effect on Sunday. A lot can happen in 4 days. It's a very nervous wait for all involved, particularly the families of hostages. So I understand your trepidation in that case. This waiting game continues for you. Have you had any information about your brother? Because so many families, I'm sure like yours, have been operating in this information vacuum.
Yes, the kidnapping of my brother, the entirety of the kidnapping was captured by Hamas terrorists on the morning of the 7th of October and was posted on social media on the morning of the 7th of October. This is exactly how my father got to know that his son was taken in captivity. We know from hostages who came back on the first hostage deal more than a year ago that they saw him in the tunnels inside Gaza and that he was relatively unharmed and healthy. In the past couple of months, we got multiple pieces of information from the IDF intelligence officers who accompany us, and that Nimrod is alive in the tunnels, and we're hoping that this nightmare will come to an end, and in the end of the day, we'll see him home alive, and we can rehabilitate as a family.
Yeah. Each piece of information over the last 15 months giving you that hope that he is okay, you know, just 19 years old when he was taken fit and healthy, which I'm sure, you know, gave you some.
We're going to end that now because we're about to end our show and go over to our XRP announcement. as well. So we're going to ring the bell in just a couple of minutes' time. If you've just tuned in today, we've been doing a news live special. I wasn't going to be here. I was taking the afternoon off. But I had to come back on because much more important than anything is hear about the war coming to an end and a ceasefire. It's incredible, isn't it? And it's kind of like disturbing, really, that all this happened and the ceasefire happens literally hours before the inauguration of Donald Trump. It kind of, it's incredible, really, when you think about it. That can't be a coincidence. It's been going on all this time, and it'll literally come to an end hours before Donald Trump comes in. And you start to think, well, really, could we have not done this before? People have been dying, and they're still going to die, of course, until the ceasefire on Sunday. Tragic. But it's great news for the war, great news for people, great news for planet Earth, and great news, of course, for the stock market. We saw it rally. People are now taking profits in the last few seconds. This is what everyone does. Of course, that's the way the world works. But it'll be a rally again tomorrow. Today, we've seen exactly as expected. The CPI come in and PPI yesterday who came in. It wasn't inflationary. The jobs report wasn't. All of those things we got right again. And there we go. It's a great story today. It's good news for everyone. And we're about to ring the bell. We've got exactly 5 minutes to go. The moment that the bell rings, we won't stay on. I would expect a rally after the hours. Not going to cover that. Don't need to. As investors, we are more than happy with everything. Remember, I was at 128,000 3 days ago with everything going down, and I bought a lot more of the S&P, and now you can see I'm nearly at an all-time high once again. We'll be there in a couple of days. Coca-Cola, people taking profits after our little rally today. This is perfectly normal. This is what happens. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. So in pinned to the top, we've got our Sensei XRP event. That's going to go live in a few minutes, in fact. That's going to go right here. I'll explain what that's all about when you join us. That's happening there. That's going to go live in a second. So we're just about to ring the bell in a couple of seconds. If you've just tuned in today, thank you very much for tapping the like button. This was a news special. We've not been doing stocks. We've just been watching it as we've been listening to the news. Thank you ever so much, everyone who subscribed and rung the bell. We're just a few away now from a very special moment on the channel. We literally become a big channel probably tonight. What happens? We're about to hit 60,000 subscribers. And as always happens, as we approach a milestone, trolls come in, subscribe just to unsubscribe. So do expect, as we hit 60,000, they'll do their little thing. They do it every single time. And then about 5 seconds later, we've gone past and we've gone through. Right now, everyone's playing around with the numbers to try and keep us down. All we're doing is like a dam. It builds up and builds up. And the moment we pop through, whoomph, it goes up 100. Happens every single time. Expect it to happen tonight. So, yeah. It's just every time you try to build something, there's always somebody who tries to knock you down to make themselves feel important. We see it every time. So there we go. It'll happen again tonight. It's a big night for us. Profit taking still happening. And we're just 3 minutes to go now before the bell. Let me bring all your comments on the screen. It's not a coincidence. Exactly. Today is a wonderful day. So many good news. Thanks, Martyn, to bring the news to us. You are very welcome, Bernie B. It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for being with me. It's pure evil running this world. US Congress, an evil president works for them too. Songs for Space, I give everyone a voice. Everyone has a comment here. Just be respectful and I can share it. Promises made, promises kept. Craig, finance coach. Gen DX, AI healthcare. I'm not sure what the question is. Big day for you, Martyn. Plus 4K. I'm not doing bad myself. Congratulations to you. Well done to you. Very, very pleased for you to hear that. That's what it's all about. It doesn't matter about what I'm making. It's really not important. I'm just here to help people, really. The big day for you, Martyn. Thank you. Classic Carnut. Are we pumping tonight or what, Bud? Bud, I have no idea what you mean. Are we pumping tonight? What are we talking about, Dale? What is your question? Okay, well, 1.5 minutes to go. We're about to ring the bell and roll the credits, and then we're going to go into our XRP very brief event, actually. So let's do that now. In fact, what I'm going to do is update this now. This will go live a little bit earlier. Let me do that. I wasn't on Do Not Disturb. There we go. That's better. So XRP, let me just change this. I'll make a couple of adjustments. The time is 3:05. And make a couple of adjustments. Save that. Do that. Okay. Just making a couple of adjustments. We've got 30 seconds to go. Ceasefire. Yeah. Make sure that goes to there. It does. You've got the link. Okay, we're all set. We're about to ring the bell. It's trying to go up again. Just like I said, people taking profit, and don't be surprised if it rallies into the after hours. It's the market will try to catch you unawares and do it when no one's watching, except I'll be watching. The bell has gone. We're in after hours. Oh, that just come undone there. Let me just fix my bell. There we go. That's better. Just come a bit loose there. All right. Okay. Great stuff. The bell has gone. Wonderful day today. Let me read the last comments. January the 20th. Can't wait. I'll be covering the inauguration, of course. All day special. You cannot afford to miss that. We are pumping tonight, says Dale. Can we be fulfilling our dreams next year? We're fulfilling our dreams today. We're always fulfilling our dreams every day. Here to change the world every day, and we do that every day. Appreciate you all. It was a nice time. Thank you, Xavier Williams. Thank you so much indeed. Become a family. We can do so much here. We're here to help everyone, give everyone a voice, have fun. We have the music concert every Friday. Join in. I was voted by Elton John as the world piano man. There's my music concert every Friday. Join me for that. And you'll enjoy that, I'm sure. Sensei jet lag. let me fix my bell. Lest in win. Yeah, let me fix. That's what I just did. What time? January the 20th. All day, of course. All day from 7:30 in the morning. All day, as we always do. We're always here every day, every single trading day. We are live all day, every day. We're the most live, honest channel in the world. That is our aim. Okay, that's it. Martyn, is there any particular reason you use Robinhood? Yes, many, many reasons. It's the most basic, simplest way of using a brokerage. I love it. It's very simple to share on screen. I don't get paid. I'm not affiliated by Robinhood, but it's very, very simple. I've gone from $5,000 to $250,000 live on the show. There's my cash. There's my overall investments. Over $250,000 invested, and it's the most simplest system. I love Robinhood. I think it's fantastic. I have the Robinhood Gold card. Let me show you. This is my Robinhood solid gold, and I mean solid gold credit card. Here it is. Solid gold credit card. This is what I use here. And what I absolutely love about this, let me just share with you on the screen, what I absolutely love about this credit card, look at this. Look at this. I'm going to show you something now you've never seen before. I've just paid for something on Robinhood. Can you see I've just earned 97 points in the last few minutes, okay? Let me just make sure I can show you what it is without revealing anything to you. So let me see what I've just bought. Just bear with me a second. I can't share that on the screen because obviously I reveal too much. But all I can tell you is Right, I've just paid for my Adobe Premiere, which is what I have every month, okay? And because of that, I've just earned some points. Can you see those points there? All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to press the cashback button. See on the screen, cashback. Just going to make sure it doesn't reveal anything, any of my numbers. So I'm going to click cashback, okay? Watch this. You've never seen anything like this. This is why I use Robinhood. There's my cashback. Look at that. So I've just earned cashback. I can swipe it all the way across. 97 cents. This hasn't even been processed yet. This is just literally in the last few seconds. I have made a purchase on my credit card. I pay all my bills now, every single bill with Robinhood. I've earned 97 cents. It's a 3% cashback. Now on Bank of America, American Express, you've got to wait a couple of months for it all to add up, get $20, and then you can get the cashback. Rubbish. What a load of rubbish. Watch this. I can redeem the money straight away. Watch this. I can redeem the money straight away. Look at that. Boom. Points redeemed successfully. Straight away. Gone straight into my Robinhood account immediately before it's even processed. How flipping fantastic is that? And now it's gone back down to zero. As you can see, every single penny is already working for me, already in my Robinhood. How about that? Pretty good, right? I mean, it's pretty good. I love Robinhood. I think it's fantastic. If you want Robinhood, here's Robinhood USA. You get free stocks. You get free shares by clicking on my referral. There's Robinhood UK. You get free stocks by clicking on that as well. Absolutely love it. Think it's absolutely fantastic. And if I go over to my Robinhood now, you will see, I'm just trying to make sure I don't reveal anything too much. If I click my notifications, there we go. Notifications. I can show you. This is my Robinhood app. 97 cents from that purchase there you are. If I can just scroll up. You successfully redeemed 97 cents. Can you see that? That's automatically gone straight into my Robinhood, and the payment hasn't even been processed yet. I do that several times a day. There's money always flooding into my account. It's just incredible. I love Robinhood. Best service. No one even comes close to Robinhood. It far exceeds American Express Platinum. Way above that, and that is regarded, the millionaire's credit card. Absolutely bonkers. And in a few days' time, I'll receive a solid gold, and I mean solid gold credit card with a purity of 10 carats. Anyway, that's it from me. What a great day. Yeah, bud, I'm sold. I'm going to be looking into getting the gold card for sure. Absolutely. I referred 10 people, so in a couple of days' time, I will receive a solid gold credit card. I'm going to be putting it on eBay and selling it to one of you who wants to own a real solid gold worth like $2,000 worth of gold. It's a real thing, and I'm going to sell it. So rather than melt it down, I'm going to sell it. I've already got several people who want to buy it from me, an actual Robinhood solid gold credit card. So anyway, there you go. You have to sign up for Robinhood credit card using a PC. It doesn't work on your phone. I don't know. It worked on my phone, but then I don't know. Right, okay. We're going to end the show right there. Going to send you now over to the XRP event, expecting the market to go up after hours. This news is phenomenal, and it's just great to be an investor. All right, that's it from me. Thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to end the show right now. The link's in the chat. It's about to start right now. Come and join me. Yeah, 10 carats. 10 carats. It's anything above 10 carats is solid gold. The carat is the purity of the gold, but it is still 100%. No. Crag Finance. Pure gold is 24 carats. That is correct. That is the purity of the gold, but it's still solid gold. If you have a gold-plated ring, your ring is steel, silver, whatever, with gold plate. That is gold-plated. If it is solid gold, it's solid gold. And it's solid gold because it has this hallmark on it. If you look here, this is the solid gold credit card. Let me make sure I'm not revealing anything on the screen once again. Let me show you my solid gold credit card. There you go. Can you see? Right, there you go. I'll show you again. There is my gold card. Can you see at the bottom of the screen? It says AU79. AU79 means solid gold. It is a solid gold credit card with the purity of 10 carat. If it was 24 carat gold, it would be flexible and bendy. Yes, it would be worth more money, but it'd be worth about $2.5, $3 grand. But if it was, it would be bending and useless. However, this is a solid gold credit card, not a plastic card, not a platinum card plated in gold. It is solid gold with the purity. Just like if you get a solid gold ring, you've got different carats of the purity of the gold. And I want to make sure that people understand that. People go, it's not gold. It is gold. Anyway, great day. Anyway, it's time to go over now to our XRP event. So, going to end this. You can click it on the top, or it'll take you there automatically. All right, I will see you back there now, and otherwise I'll see you in the morning. That's it from me. Until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.